You've been trying so hard to earn respect from someone who only seems to feel powerful when you're the one reaching, the one explaining, the one forgiving first, the one making it easy for them to stay emotionally half present. And I need you to hear this with your whole chest. Respect does not come from how much you can tolerate. It comes from how steady you can stay when your heart is being tested. Because an avoidant doesn't just fear closeness. They fear being accountable to closeness. They fear the moment love stops being optional. They fear the moment your needs become real, spoken, and consistent. And that's why the nicest person often gets treated the worst. Not because kindness is weak, but because kindness without standards teaches someone that access to you is guaranteed, even when they give you the bare minimum, even when they disappear, even when they act like your feelings are too much, and you might not realize it. But every time you chase, every time you over-explain, every time you accept confusion as normal, you are sending a message you never meant to send. You can pull away and I will still make myself smaller to keep you. And listen, I'm not judging you for that. You did it because you care, because you love, because you believe if you just show enough patience, they'll finally understand. But the truth is, the moment you start abandoning yourself to keep them comfortable, you're not building love, you're building a habit. And that habit teaches them they don't have to respect your time, your emotions, your boundaries, or your presence. So here is the shift, the one that changes everything: consistency and self control, not as a performance, not as a tactic to scare them, but as a decision to stop bleeding quietly in a relationship that makes you beg for basics. Self control is when you feel the urge to text, to call, to check if they've seen your message, to rewrite your pain into something softer so they won't run. And instead, you breathe, you pause, and you ask yourself, if I send this, am I honoring myself, or am I trying to earn permission to be loved? And consistency is when you don't set a boundary once and then break it the moment they give you a little attention. Consistency is when your words and your actions match. When you say, I want connection, and you don't keep rewarding distance. When you say, I need respect, and you don't accept jokes that cut you, silence that punishes you, or effort that only shows up when they're scared to lose you. Because your nervous system has been trained to chase crumbs and call it love. But real love does not demand that you abandon your dignity. Real love doesn't require you to earn basic care. And the most powerful thing you can do is become someone who is emotionally steady, someone who can love deeply and still walk away from inconsistency without rage, without revenge, without begging, because that kind of steadiness is rare, and it forces an avoidant to face something they can't manipulate, the reality that you are not controlled by their distance. And let me tell you what happens when you actually live this, not for a day, not for a week, but as a new standard for your life. They start to feel it. They start to sense that you are no longer available on demand, that you are no longer a backup plan, that you are no longer sitting at the edge of your phone hoping they choose you. And that is when their fear activates, not because you threatened them, but because your calm exposes the consequences of their patterns, because avoidance survives on uncertainty. It survives on you staying emotionally invested while they stay emotionally vague. It survives on you continuing to show up even when they don't, and your self-control breaks that system. Your consistency becomes a mirror that shows them who they've been with you, and that mirror is terrifying because it means they can't keep the comfort of you without the responsibility of you. It means they can't keep your warmth while refusing your needs, and for the first time, they have to ask themselves, what if this person actually means what they say? What if they don't collapse into chasing me? What if they don't beg? What if they simply step back? And that's where respect begins, when someone realizes you are not a person who can be handled with minimal effort. You are not a person who can be kept with occasional messages and inconsistent affection. You are a person with a life, a spine, a standard, and a heart that is no longer negotiating its own worth. So if you want to expand this one key truth into something you can live by, start here. Stop being impressive. Start being consistent. Stop being endlessly understanding. Start being clearly boundaried. Stop giving 10 chances to someone who hasn't even respected the first request. And this doesn't mean you become cold. It means you become clear. It means you communicate like an adult and then you act like you meant it. You say, I care about you, but I don't do hot and cold. You say, I want a relationship where we talk things through, not one where I get punished with silence. You say, I'm not asking you to be perfect, I'm asking you to be present. And then you let the silence do its work. You let your absence become the message you were tired of repeating. You stop trying to control their reaction. You stop trying to manage their emotions. You stop trying to rescue them from the discomfort of accountability. Because the hardest addiction to break is the addiction to being chosen by someone who only chooses you halfway. And the strongest version of you is the one who can feel love and still choose self-respect. The one who can miss them and still not chase them. The one who can hope they change and still refuse to wait in uncertainty. And when you become that person, even an avoidant can feel it because your energy changes, your desperation disappears, your words slow down, your presence becomes valuable, and they either rise to meet you or they reveal they never had the capacity. And either way, you stop losing yourself in the process. You stop performing for crumbs. You stop shrinking to be tolerated. You stop auditioning for a role you already deserved, and you start walking through life with the quiet power of someone who finally understands that being respected is not about being feared. It's about being undeniable, because you are consistent, because you are self-controlled, because you are no longer available for love that comes with confusion, and you are no longer willing to pay for connection with your dignity. You think the thing that will finally make them stay is giving them more comfort, more softness, more access, more reassurance, more chances, and I understand why you do it. Because your heart is good, because you believe love should heal, because you want to be the safe place they never had. But listen to me, the moment you become a sanctuary for someone who keeps leaving and returning whenever it suits them, you stop being a partner and you become a convenience. And the most painful part is you won't notice it at first, because it looks like love, it feels like loyalty, it sounds like patience. But slowly, quietly, it turns into you swallowing your needs so they don't feel pressured, you lowering your standards so they don't feel trapped, you accepting crumbs so they don't feel guilty, and then one day you wake up and realize you've been begging for basic effort. And the reason an avoidant can keep doing this is simple. They don't truly feel the weight of losing you until access to you is no longer automatic. Because for an avoidant, access is the drug. Access to your warmth, access to your forgiveness, access to your time, access to your body, access to your emotional labor, access to the way you make things better for them, and they can pull back and still keep the benefits if you keep the door open. They can go silent and still expect you to be emotionally available. They can disappear and still return to comfort. They can treat your presence like a light switch, off when they feel overwhelmed, on when they feel lonely, and you might call it confusion, but to them it becomes a system where your love is always there, even when their effort is not. And this is why the second key truth matters so much. Your calm boundary is what makes them feel the weight of losing access to you. Not your anger, not your tears, not your paragraphs, not your ultimatums, your calm boundary. Because anger gives them something to blame, tears give them something to dismiss, paragraphs give them something to ignore, ultimatums give them a reason to paint you as too much. But a calm boundary gives them only one thing: reality. Reality sounds like this: I care about you, and I won't do a relationship where I'm left in uncertainty. Reality sounds like this: I want consistency, and if you can't give that, I will step back. Reality sounds like this: I'm not here to chase, I'm here to build something mutual. And then, and this is the part that changes your entire life, you actually step back. You stop giving them full access while they give you half a heart. You stop being the person who replies in seconds to someone who replies in days. You stop canceling your peace to keep their comfort. You stop letting them be your emotional weather. You still remain kind, you still remain human, but you become unavailable for inconsistency. You become unavailable for hot and cold. You become unavailable for silence used as control, because you finally understand that love without boundaries is just self-abandonment wearing a pretty outfit. And here is what happens inside them when you do this. At first, they feel relief, because avoidance loves space, it loves distance, it loves the feeling of not being needed. But then something shifts because the space they wanted is no longer a space where you wait. It's a space where you live. It's a space where you return to yourself. It's a space where you stop hovering around their moods. And when they sense that, when they sense you're not sitting in the dark hoping they come back, that's when the discomfort hits. Because the power they had was never in their love, it was in your availability. The power was in knowing they could leave and still be held. The power was in knowing you'd still answer, still forgive, still soften, still open. And when that door closes quietly, not slammed, not dramatic, just calmly closed, they feel the loss before they can even name it, because they can't reach into you the way they used to. You see, a boundary is not a punishment. It's not revenge. It's not teaching them a lesson. A boundary is the line that protects your dignity. And the reason it creates instant respect is because it's the first time you are not negotiating your worth. It's the first time your love is not free access. It's the first time they feel that being close to you requires responsibility. And that's why an avoidant can die of fear in that moment. Not literally, but emotionally. Because their nervous system hears, I can't control this person with distance anymore. And that fear is actually the beginning of something healthier because it forces them to choose, to either grow or lose you. And I need you to hold this next part carefully because this is where so many people break. When you finally set a boundary, the avoidant may test it. They may send a breadcrumb. They may appear with sweetness after silence. They may say, I miss you, without offering change. They may flirt with closeness just enough to reopen your door. And if you let that happen without consistency, the cycle restarts, and you'll be right back where you began, anxious, waiting, hoping. So your boundary must be calm and consistent. You don't respond to words, you respond to behavior. You don't open the door because they knock softly. You open the door when they show up differently, when their actions match their claims, when effort becomes stable, when communication becomes respectful, when you feel safe instead of uncertain. Because your goal is not to scare them into staying, your goal is to stop paying for love with your nervous system. Your goal is to stop calling almost a relationship. Your goal is to stop being the person who accepts half love because you're afraid of losing them. And the truth is, the moment you stop giving them comfort without commitment, the moment you stop giving them access without consistency, your energy changes, your eyes change, your voice changes, the way you walk through life changes, because you're no longer pleading for a seat at a table where you were always the one serving. So hear me clearly. Your calm boundary is the greatest act of love you can give yourself, and it is also the clearest message you can give them. I am not here to be an option. I am not here to be a convenience. I am not here to be your emotional backup plan. And if they are capable of growth, they will feel the respect rise in them, not because you became harsh, but because you became real. If they are not capable, they will drift, and it will hurt, but it will hurt cleanly, not the slow poison of constant uncertainty. And one day, you will look back and realize the moment you stopped giving automatic access was the moment you stopped losing yourself. And that is the moment you finally became impossible to take for granted. With confusion, and you are no longer willing to pay for connection with your dignity. You've been living like your worth is something you have to prove, like love is a test you have to pass, like if you just stay a little longer, love a little harder, explain a little better, they will finally wake up and see what they have. But I need you to hear this. You were never meant to audition for a place in someone's heart. You were meant to be valued, chosen, and protected. And the third key truth is the one that breaks the spell you've been under. You don't need to prove your worth. Your absence from chaos becomes the proof, because an avoidant can argue with your words. They can dismiss your feelings, they can twist your intentions, they can label you too emotional, too needy, too intense, but they cannot argue with the silence that comes when you stop participating in the cycle. They cannot debate the reality of losing your energy, and they cannot ignore the emptiness they feel when the person who used to hold everything together finally steps out of the storm. This is what you have to understand about chaos. Chaos isn't only yelling and fighting. Chaos can be the constant anxiety of waiting, the constant guessing, the constant reading between the lines, the constant overthinking, the constant, are we okay? The constant feeling that you're one wrong sentence away from them pulling away again. And you have been living in that, trying to keep the peace by shrinking, trying to keep the connection by chasing, trying to keep them comfortable by sacrificing your own needs. And over time, it becomes a quiet chaos inside you, your chest tight, your mind racing, your self-esteem sliding, your joy dimming, your confidence turning into caution. And then you start doing the most dangerous thing of all. You start calling it normal. You start telling yourself this is just how they are. This is just their attachment style. This is just their trauma. And yes, they may have wounds. Yes, they may have fear, but your love was never meant to become the place where you bleed for someone else's inability to show up. And the reason your absence from chaos becomes proof is because it forces the truth to surface. When you're present, when you're available, when you're explaining, when you're trying, you are covering the cracks. You are making it possible for the relationship to continue even when it's one-sided. You are doing the emotional labor that should be shared. You are holding the structure up with your own hands. And as long as you keep doing that, the avoidant never has to face the full reality of their behavior. They can keep telling themselves it's fine, that you're dramatic, that you'll get over it, that you always come back. But when you step away, when you stop patching holes, when you stop chasing clarity, when you stop soothing their discomfort at the cost of your dignity, the structure collapses into the truth, and the truth becomes unavoidable. Your absence is not you punishing them, it's you refusing to be part of dysfunction. It's you refusing to keep dancing in a room where the music hurts you. And when you do that, something profound happens. Your nervous system starts to detox. You start to breathe again. You start to remember what it feels like to wake up without checking your phone. You start to remember what it feels like to laugh without that heaviness. You start to remember what it feels like to have energy for your own life, your goals, your friends, your family, your sleep, your confidence. And that is when your worth becomes loud. Not in your words, but in your life. Because a person who values themselves doesn't have to announce it, they live it, and that living is what creates respect. And here's where it gets deeply emotional, because the truth is, many of you don't fear losing them. You fear losing the version of yourself that existed when you were still hoping. You fear letting go of the dream you kept feeding with your patience. You fear admitting that love alone cannot build a relationship if the other person keeps their heart behind a locked door. You fear the grief of realizing you were giving devotion to someone who was only giving you uncertainty. And I'm not going to minimize that pain. It hurts. It hurts to accept that your love was real and their effort was inconsistent. It hurts to accept that you cannot love someone into being ready. But what hurts more is staying in a situation that slowly teaches you to doubt yourself, slowly teaches you to accept less, slowly teaches you that you have to earn basic care. So the moment you step out of chaos, you step into clarity. You stop offering your heart as a bargaining chip. You stop negotiating your needs. You stop sending energy into a place that keeps leaking it, and you become quiet, not silent as a game, quiet as a decision, quiet as dignity, quiet as self-respect. You don't need to announce a big exit. You don't need to write a final paragraph. You don't need to create drama, because drama is still attachment. Drama is still connection. Drama is still engagement. The most powerful thing you can do is withdraw your emotional labor and keep your integrity. You simply stop showing up where you are not being met. And that is when an avoidant starts to feel fear, because their greatest comfort was your chaos, not because they enjoyed hurting you, but because your chaos meant you were still invested. Your chaos meant you were still reachable. Your chaos meant they still had influence. When you stop being chaotic, when you stop being reactive, when you stop being available for the cycle, they feel the shift, they feel the loss of control, they feel the absence of the person who used to make things okay for them, and in that emptiness, respect can finally enter, because they realize you are not a toy they can pick up and put down. You are not a source they can tap when they're lonely. You are not a backup plan. You are a whole human being with standards. But I want you to take this one step deeper. Your goal is not to make them fear you. Your goal is to stop fearing yourself. Stop fearing your own loneliness. Stop fearing the silence. Stop fearing what happens when you finally choose you. Because the strongest love you will ever experience is the love that does not require you to abandon yourself. So let your absence be clean. Let your absence be peaceful. Let your absence be the proof that you are done with chaos. Let your absence be the proof that you are no longer willing to work harder than the person who is supposed to be your partner. And if they come back with real change, with real consistency, with real accountability, you can rebuild slowly, safely, with boundaries. But if they come back with excuses, with breadcrumbs, with temporary sweetness, you will see it clearly now because you are not starving anymore. And one day, you will realize that the moment you stopped proving your worth was the moment you finally started living it. And that is when respect becomes instant, not because you demanded it, but because you became someone who no longer participates in anything that costs them their dignity, their peace, and their self-worth. So hear me clearly. Your calm boundary is the greatest act of love you can give yourself, and it is also the clearest message you can give them. I am not here to be an option. I am not here to be a convenience. I am not here to be your emotional backup plan. And if they are capable of growth, they will feel the respect rise in them, not because you became harsh, but because you became real. If they are not capable, they will drift, and it will hurt, but it will hurt cleanly, not the slow poison of constant uncertainty. And one day, you will look back and realize the moment you stopped giving automatic access was the moment you stopped losing yourself, and that is the moment you finally became impossible to take for granted. With confusion, and you are no longer willing to pay for connection with your dignity.